What's up, everybody? Can you see me? Can you hear me? Fantastic. A Todd is what I aspire to look like. All right, and everyone, we are live on Twitch. Brought to you by royalty-free music. The song is called Sax. It's a real banger. Oh, sweet. Yeah, what's up, everybody? How's it going? Seeing some friends in the chat here. What's up, everyone? I'm Todd Anderson. I'm your host for this evening. Welcome to WordHack. WordHack is a monthly show here on the Babycastles Twitch stream, also in the real-life Babycastles location in New York City on 14th Street. But since quarantine, we've been doing these live stream shows, which have been a lot of fun. But we're a monthly show. We've been running for just over 6.5 years at this point. And we're a monthly show dedicated to the intersection of language and technology. So kind of exploring the way computers, phones, just kind of screens in general, and the way we're reading all of our text on different types of code processors, how that affects the way we read and write and communicate, different types of things that are possible with language, and different new ways of working with language that are enabled by technology. And we try and bring together like a real wide tent, a really like disparate group of people that are all kind of approaching this in different ways. Part of what we're really happy to be at Babycastles, because Babycastles has such a great community standing in the indie games community. So we have lots of people working on language and games. We have lots of artists working on text in part of their work or doing experiments with language. We have academics researching language. We have technologists, programmers, people engineering new platforms that use language in interesting ways, people researching these sorts of things. Try and have all sorts of different folks, bring them together, and all kind of bond in a kind of low-key, fun community way where we can see what each other are thinking about, check out some new projects. Really excited about our lineup for tonight. We took off January, but I'm pumped to be back with such a great lineup for February. Tonight we're going to be hearing from Golan Levin and Tega talking about their new book, Code as Creative Medium. We're going to be hearing from Kelli Anderson, and we're going to be hearing from Artemio Morales. It's going to be a really great show. Let's give it up real quick for our featured presenters. Oh man, just clapping right in the camera. I usually have my YouTube video with applause sound effects queued up, but instead I'm just going to be clapping right at my webcam. I see you there in the chat. I'm seeing some claps and some woots. We are formally an IRL human meat bag show, so I do like to keep the audience feedback traditions of an IRL meat space show around in the chat. So to the extent that you can, maybe more so than you normally would in like a Zoom event, and you just want to just write a clap or a woo, or just like respond to things that are happening. Really like let the speakers feel like you're there and that there's an audience appreciating them. I feel like can make you feel real dead inside if you're just talking to an empty room. We like to try and keep that sort of fun community spirit going of WordHack here. So I'm going to be hoping to see a lively chat throughout tonight's event. But before we get to our featured presenters, we've got a very special part of WordHack, which is the open projector. So I started out in when I first moved to New York. I started out in the poetry community. I was doing spoken word poetry, and going to open mics was a really important part of my artistic development and identity. And it was just like, I remember like it was very scary to be in a new place and not know anyone and try to connect with people over my creative work. And I like really benefited a lot from places where you could just put your name on a list and didn't have to know anyone, didn't have to be vetted by someone who already thought you were cool. And so going to open mics and sharing my poems really helped me get to know people and help grow my work. And I find that's a little harder to find in a lot of digital-oriented spaces. So WordHack has always had that as part of it. It's an open projector where members of the community can sign up for a 5-minute slot to share a project. Got a really great open projector going on for you. We have 4 people on the open projector tonight, which is really exciting. Let's get into that in a moment. I hope our open projector participants can hear me in the Zoom call, because we are going to be starting off with Leah. Hey, let's everybody in the chat and at home, even if she can't hear you, give it up for Leah. Woo! All right, I'm going to switch over to Leah.
Oh wow, there we go. Am I on?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Hi everybody, I'm Leah. I'm gonna go ahead and jump right into it. I have a bunch of stuff I want to show you. This is a quick blurb. My name is Leah and I make and teach machine learning art. Here are my social media handles if you want to find me on the internet. I also have a mailing list where I email out the latest stuff in like AI artwork and resources for like learning it. But yeah, I'm gonna play some things for you. So these are all GAN-generated visuals, GAN being a generative adversarial network. They're trained on about 14,000 images of flowers. The cello music is courtesy of my really talented cellist friend. Here's another one with the same model, the same flower model. So here I'm using the GAN generated visuals and then also Touch Designer, which I've been playing with for a little bit. Skip to the next one. This one is, I trained a model on a bunch of sea slugs. Yeah, and so this model called StyleGAN has this very particular, like, that kind of texture of work that it creates. Yeah. I have one last piece of air This is the same flower model as before, but here I'm using my voice to control it.
Ooh, ah, ah, hello, hello, hello.
I like to think that I'm like talking to my flowers. They're dancing to my words. And to just close out like all the AI art stuff.
Idea, and it's mostly because it breaks the encapsulation. So what we
This is a zine that me and a couple friends have made about how to like, if you're making AI artwork, how to do it responsibly. This is this digital zine. There's this cute little blob, but basically it goes through and explains what AI art is, what responsible AI is, and like the process of like training your own model and making your own work. Also like critical things to think about, like whose data are you using, how do you credit them, and yeah, basically like how to do it ethically. I'm gonna show you guys a little more work that is not AI art related, but just some other stuff that I've been working on. This is pixel sorting in Touch Designer on an illustration. And this is more of an analog work. This is to Claire de Lune. And this literally is a roll of toilet paper, like the cardboard thing, that I am filming through with my webcam and like shining a light around. But it was just like a really fun analog craft night that I had. And yeah, the behind the scenes is right here. Literally, I took an X-Acto knife to a toilet paper roll and I stuck my webcam underneath. But I created a really cool effect. And yeah, I think that's everything I have to say. Here's my contact if you want to get. Yeah, thank you guys.
All right. Thank you so much, Leah. Thank you for being here with us. All right. Give it up for Leah, everybody. And up next on our open projector, let's keep it going for Jessie. Give it up for Jessie. Oh, yeah.
Hi, everybody. What a thrill. My name is Jessie Mateo, and I am I'm an animator, and I am the Media Arts Department Chair at the Chicago Academy for the Arts in Chicago. It's an arts high school. But the project that I wanted to present is sort of a strange work in progress of things that have kind of come together with a speculative design group that that I'm part of. So in this project, we are sort of designing kind of a tabletop gaming style experience. But the game is designed so that it is also starting a conversation, so that at the end of the game, we have an interview, we collect some data points, and we're also doing some design research on ways to think speculatively about climate change and the roles that corporations take in how we experience the climate and climate change and how that is changing the earth. So some of what I'm going to talk through are just a large portion of this project is role playing and maybe a little bit of performance. So I am coming to you this evening as the marketing manager of the Do Good Corporation. And I want to take you on a journey, and I want to see what would you be willing to do if you knew that you could, in one moment, change something literally and instantaneously. In the game, we would take you through a bit of a getting to know you experience. We'll find that out later when this becomes a reality. But again, I am Jessie Mateo, jessiemateo.com. You can follow my school's Instagram account if you would like. We've been posting student work there, and that's been really fun. Okay, so the Do Good Corporation, though. The guise of the Do Good Corporation is that it is 2030. We've collected you here to gift you a deluxe adventure trip to any number of fabulous, fabulous places, and you're guided there instantly. We are gathered all together in one space. We are at an outdoor sporting goods store called Outdoor Markets. And we are also sponsored by a video game called The Great Outdoors. It is 2030, and it is the 25th anniversary of the release of this video game that trains you to be a productive worker, which was also created by the Do Good Corporation. But in order for you to get those deluxe fabulous trips, you just need to sit through this little presentation. And the presentation is on something called the Do Good Report. What's the Do Good Report? Well, take a moment and think about what you value. Is there anything in particular that you value about the environment in general, the space that you live in? Do you feel like you want to have an effect on the world? Well, let me tell you, the Do Good Report is an amazing thing. And I can tell you that because I myself am a satisfied customer. I purchased a copy of the Do Good Report, and I couldn't be happier with what came from it. So you can see here, this is before I purchased the report. Yes, I was living a fabulously wealthy lifestyle. I had my fabulous dogs. I had my fabulous jumpsuits. I lived in a fabulous library. But this is me now on my organic backyard farm after purchasing the Do Good Report. We've got plenty of very satisfied customers. We've got Suzanne Taylor, a hotel mogul. She purchased the report and her whole life changed. In fact, Suzanne loves to cook out now after she has purchased the report. We've got young people who purchased the report. Here is Caitlin. She is an environmental activist. In fact, she's from Iowa, and her big effect that she got to have by purchasing the Do Good Report is that now all meat is a magical meat substitute. We've got a cattle rancher who bought the Do Good Report, and all of his cattle lands were changed immediately to wind generating power. It's a huge thing, of course. Now that it's 2030, you've all heard about all of these things on the news. I'm not telling you anything new. We're at our 5 minutes. Well, what is the Do Good Report and how much does it cost you? So this is where the game starts to get interesting. I tell you that all it takes is that you have to give everything you own, all of your assets, all of your debts, everything. And literally overnight, through incredible research and development, something major changes. What is it? Well, that's why you play the game, to find out, is the Do Good Report right for you? So in this experience, people click on links, they call phone calls, there are GitHub websites that you can climb through the back end and all that. And at the end, people have to decide, would they purchase the Do Good Report? And that's it. So thank you for giving me a minute to talk my spiel about that. Strange little thing. Have a great night.
Thank you so much, Jessie. Great to have you here with us. Give it up for Jessie, everybody. Woo! All right. And up next, we have returning to the WordHack stage. Very happy to welcome back a past WordHack speaker, Jamie Brew. Give it up for Jamie.
Hello. Can you see and hear me?
I can see and hear you. Let me make sure you are spotlighted. But
Please
think so.
spotlight me. Right now I can just see the spotlighted T for Todd.
Oh,
but
that's me.
I can also see myself. Yeah, that's you. Okay, well, I'll just start talking as if I'm spotlighted.
Yep, you're spotlighted.
I
You're
will
good.
Share my screen. So, hey, I'm just going to show off a prototype that I'm working on for making backronyms. And for those of you who haven't heard of backronyms, I have the Wikipedia page up behind me. So we won't read through this whole thing, but a backronym is when you take a word that already is a word and act as if it's an acronym and write out for each letter one word and try to come up with a kind of accidental alternate definition of this word. So the favorite example that I like to use to explain what backronyms are is taking the word spot and making it into specific point over there, or taking the word word and making it into why one reads dictionaries. One famous example of a backronym is the Amber Alert system was both named after an actual amber, but then also made into the backronym of America's Missing Broadcast Emergency Response. There's a little trivia fact. I think Patriot Act has a similar story behind it, but let's get to this little prototype. So this is a Jupyter notebook with Python code in it, and the thing that you put in at the top, this cell, is the word that you want recursively defined as a backronym. So let me just pull up the chat so that once I start doing this, we can take requests. Move this over here. Okay, so a word I might give it. Let's try giving it my name, Jamie Brew, and run this. Jamie Brew is a journalist and managing image expert based Raleigh, Eastern Wisconsin. Okay, that's fine. Let's try Todd. Todd Anderson. We can give it a little description. Todd is the lowest with the most, and this will implicitly prompt it with a little more context. Todd Anderson is a tech-oriented design developer at Need Design Engine Research School on Nexus. So there's Todd. Okay, I'm seeing some requests in the chat. Let's do Babycastles. Babycastles. Cultural institution. Is a brand ambassador by young casts and serves their local entertainment scenes. Hey, not bad. I did a Todd Anderson one before. I'll try one and. Oh wait, no, I think I just tried one. Let's try a different one. Dysphoria. Dysphoria. We don't need to give this any context because I think that the language model, which is Google's BERT language model, should have some context for what dysphoria is likely to be followed by. So let's just say dysphoria is a disease your spouse probably hates over really irritating acne. Please do Maze. Oh, Maze, that's your name. Okay. I was trying to figure out why you were so attached to Maze. Maze is a member at Independent Zach Eagle. Let's see. Heartbreak. Okay, I can see what mood we're in today. Heartbreak. State of being is a health event affecting relationships that begin rather early and kill. Squid. Todd, how much time do we have left?
Got about
Squid.
a minute or two.
All right. Squid. Let's give it excellent animal to try to bias it in a positive direction. Squid, excellent animal, is a super quick unit install demo. Try that without the parens. Is a species quite unusual in dogs. That's true. Dogs are rarely squids. All right. Let's see. Someone suggests Splatoon 3. I don't think it's gonna handle 3 that well, but we could see what happens if we do that. Splatoon 3. We'll call it a game. Is a second person launch as this originally occurred November. Oh, that is a very strange output. I think it is taking the error or something. There's somewhere where I print in weighted choice. That failed. Let's do Mario and Wario to close things out. Mario, public figure, is a modified abstract representation involving objects. And Wario, public nuisance, is a website about regulating internet operators. There you go. If you want more definitions, this notebook should be possible to share in some form. So, but I don't know how. Become friends with me and ask me how I ended up sharing it. Thanks, Todd. Good luck with the show.
Thanks, Jamie. Good to have you back. Give it up for Jamie Brew, everybody. Big claps. Alrighty. And that brings us to the final presenter on our open projector. Please give it up for Katie Garrow. Give it up for Katie. Woo!
Hey. Okay. Is this working? Can you hear me?
Yep, gotcha.
So I've been doing a series of computational poetry sketches around revising poems. I'm a poet and a computer scientist, but I normally think of myself as a kind of traditional poet that like writes with my hand, and the thoughts come from my brain. But one of the things that's really hard and kind of interesting from a computational perspective is how people revise their poems. And I think one of the reasons computers are kind of well poised to help with this task is because often when you're like revising your own work, I think this is true with like anything you do, it's really hard to like see your own work with fresh eyes. Like this is kind of why it's hard to like copy edit your own writing, because you like keep kind of skipping over the mistakes you made. But even with other things, like it's just really difficult to like not think about the way like you thought it would be or you wanted it to do. So I've been doing a bunch of things to kind of help me see my work with fresh eyes. Now I'm going to share my screen. Let's share that. And where to go? Here it is. Okay. And this is all online, so I'm going to drop a link in the chat and you guys can go like play with it as you like. So I've done 4, but I've kind of been doing 1 a week, so we'll see how long it goes on for. Okay, so this first one I call line shuffle, and it's really simple. All you do is you put in your poem on the left, and this is a poem that I've been working on that I was like writing, and it starts, my nieces and nephews came quickly, one after another, count them up and up into the sky with the rain and the stars and the changing of the seasons. So this is a poem about how I have a lot of nieces and nephews. I have 14 and counting. Okay, and then you shuffle the poem, and all it does is it just rearranges the lines of your poem in a random order. So now it starts totally differently. It starts, I mean, the snow that drifts in and then away. I mean, the rain that comes earlier and harder to talk. So this is kind of cool, right? These like 2 lines, actually were next to each other in the original draft, and now they've been flipped, and now they start the poem. And then I love this next line, to talk, ask, listen, right? This like juxtaposition that wasn't there before. This line, to talk, was somewhere totally else down here at the end. And so what's kind of cool about this to me is that, like, I think it pulls things out of your writing that you didn't necessarily see. Like this line is so much more interesting and different now that it's like the first line of the poem. And here, like, now the ending is really different, and everyone ended with a girl. I mean, they started. I mean, this is a fascinating ending for a poem. This line used to be like right in the middle somewhere and doing something totally different. And so you can do this just like over and over again, and it'll just kind of keep giving you a new arrangement of your poem. So that's one experiment. This is kind of a similar experiment with caesures. So caesures are like putting big spaces between your words in your poem. You'll see what this means in a second. I'm calling it like Let It Breathe. So this is the same poem, same order, and you can let it breathe a little. This will look a bit better if it's smaller. And it's basically like inserting these breaks kind of like randomly into the poem. But you can give yourself more breaks, you can give yourself like tons of breaks. Now the poem gets like really spread out and breathy. And one thing you can do is kind of paste this output back into your input box and do it again. And so now it's going to get like spacier and spacier. And so like we can do this again, and now it's like really spacey, and you're just like kind of glancing through this. And it's gotten like really long, right? And we can even like say like, let's do this once more. And it'll just like, wowzer, now we're in out of space. We're like just wandering through the poem in a totally new way. And this is cool, right? Like I think it's showing me into the sky, right? Like now that part of the poem, it means something different now that it has so much space, and it lets me see the poem in a new way. With the rain, it suddenly becomes like a really evocative experience and can help me like get reattached to what the poem was doing and like think about how I might do it differently. So I'll just talk about one more. This one's called Bird Words. And the basic idea is to replace all the nouns in your poem with a bird word, probably the name of a bird, but maybe also like a part of a bird or something like this. The idea is like maybe all poems should really be about birds. And I think you could do this with anything, right? It could also be about squids or sea creatures or computer programs or whatever. But I liked the idea of like changing the topic of a poem to something that you're like really obsessed with. I think a lot of people, like I have a friend Valentina, who just like writes a lot of poems about birds or with a lot of birds in it. And I was like, what if I wanted to be like Valentina and I wanted all my poems to be about birds? So again, this is the same poem. And then you click Birdify. And so it started right originally. My nieces and nephews came quickly, one after another, count them up and up into the sky with the rain and the stars. And now it reads, my cassowaries and bowerbirds came quickly, one after another, count them up and up into the flightless, with the rain and the eiders and the changing of the martin. Martin is a kind of bird. When I was working on this, I learned a lot about bird names. We have the African gray parrots, the kingfishers. This is like having some problems, but overall, it's doing pretty well. So that's it. Yeah, WordHack, new version of WordHack that we can all sign on to. And yeah, I dropped the link so you guys can go play with these. And if you end up using them in your own work or you're discovering something new, I'd love to hear about it and hear what it's been doing for you in your own practice. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thank you so much, Katie. That was awesome. And that is the conclusion of our WordHack Open Projector. Let's give it up one more time for all of our WordHack Open Projector participants. Woo. Oh, yeah. And if that seemed like fun, like a low stress way to share something you've been working on, and you're like, oh, I could maybe do an open projector in the future, That's right, you can. Generally, I send out the sign up. It's a little bit, it's gated behind. You have to confirm your RSVP on our With Friends page in order to sign up for it or sign up for the WordHack email list. But in either of those two places, once the With Friends event is live, you can get on the Open Projector list by RSVPing and sign up for the next show. So if that's something you're thinking about, really encourage you to do it, especially if you're new to our community and want to get involved, get people to know you, get to know some of the people that have been here for a while. Open Projector is a great way to put yourself out there and share something you've been working on. And of course, we always love having past speakers or past community members kind of let us know what they've been up to. So please think about signing up for an Open Projector in the future. But now we are on to our featured presenters for this evening. So I mentioned at the top of the show, our featured presenters for this evening are Golan Levin and Tega, Kelli Anderson, and Artemio Morales. We're going to get things started with Artemio Morales. I'm really excited to have Artemio here. He's been with WordHack since our very first show, has been come to quite a lot of them over the years, has presented here before, and has been working on something really cool over the past year. I got to see a little bit of it last summer, and I think he's about at the point where it can be get into kind of soft launch territory. So he'll tell you more about that. He's an amazing writer, designer, developer, community organizer, and now publisher. Please give it up for Artemio Morales.
Whoa, can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
All right, let me start sharing my screen here. Pull up my presentation. And yeah, so first off, just a huge thanks to Todd for inviting me to be a part of this, to Babycastles and WordHack for offering up this space, and a big thanks to everyone in the audience for being here. So my name is Art. I'm a software developer, primarily in web and new media literature. I'm a founder of AltSalt, which was originally a digital literature studio, for those of you who've known me for a while. It has since transformed into a community website, which I'll talk more about later, with my creative work being separated out into Art Mayu Studios. And I published A Modern Ghost in 2017, which is a prototype which circled around WordHack for a while and is a part of the WordHack Anthology, which I'm sure you'll hear more of later as well. And one thing I'd like to mention is that I'm Peruvian, and one aspect that's really important to Andean culture is this idea of reciprocity. And reciprocity is an equal and balanced exchange between two or more parties, and it can exist in many forms. You have reciprocity between family, friends, communities, even between humanity and nature. And I mention this because this core principle underlies so much of what I do, including the two projects I'd like to walk you through tonight. And those two projects are, number one, AltSalt, a community website for discovery and collaboration for alternative voices in publishing. And two, a new media magazine, Carrier Pigeon 21, that builds on some aesthetic ideas I've been developing for the past few years. I do want to note that the opinions expressed throughout this presentation are my own, and not necessarily those of the folks I'll be highlighting throughout the presentation. And with all that in mind, let's dive in. So AltSalt. I think the best way to describe what AltSalt is about, besides talk about all the amazing things you'll be able to find on there, including zines, comics, electronic literature, and more, is to go through an exercise. And so I have a challenge for you. Let's say we were to try and find some dope electronic literature. How would you go about doing that? Unfortunately, there are some really good resources, right? We have the Electronic Literature Organization, which does an amazing job archiving and creating collections of work. This is volume 3 of their electronic literature collection. You also have the Interactive Fiction Database with 11,000 entries filled with reviews and links to interactive fiction. And you also have platforms like itch.io and Steam. If you can parse through all the video games on here, then you can also find some interesting electronic literature. You also have the upcoming Electronic Literature Organization repository, indie publishers, personal websites and blogs, and collections. So it's totally possible to find electronic literature if you know where to look. Imagine though, could there be another resource as part of this ecosystem? Imagine a sleek Web 2.0 resource, a bit like Itch, Newgrounds, or DeviantArt, but exclusively for alternative forms of literature. And not only electronic literature, but also folks who could potentially be into electronic literature, folks from the worlds of zines, comics, and other print culture, who don't necessarily hang out in the forums we just mentioned. And that's where AltSalt comes in. AltSalt is a resource for discovering these alternative voices in publishing, a community site for discovery and collaboration. And you don't have to take my word for it. You can actually see a live alpha version of the website at www.altsalt.com. So let's go there and check it out. And there's posted a link to AltSalt in the chat as well. So you'll see that we already have a few entries on the site. Here, for example, we have The Life is a Freestyle Quarantine, published by Bad Cordo and submitted by Nick Montfort, who I believe is in the audience right now. So a huge shout out and a thanks to Nick. You'll see that here we have the ability to view this zine in browser. Here we can go through all the different pages. We can scroll in and out. You can rotate. And this works on desktop as well as mobile devices. Here's my own publication, The Modern Ghost. And here you'll see availability in the iOS and the Android stores. From the Babycastles community, we also have Charles Huang's Reflections at Sunset. Here you can see a description, the availability on itch.io. So very similar to the interactive fiction database and to the ELO collections, work can be hosted anywhere. And also acts as a directory linking out to work while providing discovery features around those entries. Important to note here is the metadata. We have data for format, distribution, creator background, as well as genres. This is all created by users when they upload their work, and this is info that will eventually be used to create category and discovery pages to allow audiences to easily discover new work. Every creator also has a profile page where you can see their description, links to their website and social platforms, as well as all of the publications they have on AltSalt. And I also want to draw attention to this zine by Andean Oral History Collective, Rima Raiz. In particular, all of the creators and collaborator bylines that we have for this publication. So the idea here is to really showcase all of the creators and collaborators who came together to create a publication with the aim of enabling discovery and connection. And overall, the idea with AltSalt is just to create a very visual, easy to parse resource that brings indie publishers together, regardless of the format that you're working in, that will make surfacing all of this work very easy. Because right now, this community website in the style of Newgrounds or DeviantArt, specifically for indie publishers focusing on these alternative forms of literature, zines, comics, story-driven games, electronic literature, poetry generators, Twitter bots, that resource doesn't exist. And I think it would be so cool if all of us indie publishers, cross-discipline, could have a community website like that for us. So I'd like to dive a little bit deeper into the mission behind AltSalt though, to promote global reciprocity by creating a communal space for zines, comics, story-driven games, and more, where underserved groups and allies can uplift each other in dialogue with the broader world. So, as mentioned, AltSalt is a platform for discovery and collaboration. And also, I hope that it can be a vision for reciprocity in the world. One of the reasons that we see so much challenge in our society, for example, between Black and Indigenous folks and society at large, is because that reciprocity has been broken and is missing between communities and from a lot of our institutions. And so while I can't profess to fix the entire world, I do wonder, how can we create, in our own small way, opportunities to restore and practice reciprocity in our institutions, in our spaces? And what would it mean if we did? And that's right, you become like a Power Rangers Megazord if you get that reference. And with this in mind, it just makes sense from AltSalt's reciprocal point of view for all of us indie publishers, whether you make zines or you're from the Andean diaspora or from the electronic literature community, or you make story-driven games, for us to stand together as one, because you're stronger when you're together, especially when you're small. You make it easier for others to discover you, and it becomes easier to do collaborations and lift each other up, cross-discipline, cross-community. And we're all making alternative literature, Like, how cool would it be to have a space that focuses on bringing these communities together? To sum all this up then, alternative voices, alternative formats. This is Alt Salt. So we're currently looking to build up this community and resource. Everyone here is totally invited to create an account if what I've said resonates with you. Please shoot me a DM at This Is Alt Salt on Instagram or Twitter. We do currently have a submission process in place. We just want to make sure that we are making a personal connection with everyone we bring on board for now, and also to make sure that we're nurturing the site properly. You can also join us on Discord or sign up for a newsletter at www.altsalt.com. Links to all of this are in the footer of the website. Also, the site is very much in alpha, and I'm fixing bugs and resolving usability issues as folks come on board, which is one reason we're not open to the world yet. So if you're interested in joining us on this journey, definitely send me a message to create an account. We'd absolutely love to have you. And lastly, I do want to let you know about some upcoming features that I've planned, including commenting, community print and digital anthologies, community creative challenges, collections, likes, the whole 9 yards. How cool would it be to have cross-community collaborations come out of this? It's stuff like that that gets me really excited about the possibilities with AltSalt. So again, you can find us at altsalt.com and at This Is AltSalt on various social platforms. And with that, I think we may have a couple of minutes for questions before I move on. Are there any questions that we have in the audience? And I'll defer to Todd in terms of when we should move forward. Or,
Yeah, we can see if there's anything in the chat, but then there is not. Then I think you're free to keep going. I think
okay.
you can give people a second to write something, but.
Okay, so we can also answer questions at the end. So I'll just continue going for now. And if you think of anything, please let me know or drop your questions into the chat. So with all that said, we're ready to shift gears now and talk a bit about Carrier Pigeon, specifically a new media magazine that I've been collaborating on with Carrier Pigeon, as well as contributing artists, including Warren Lair, who's on the call with us right now. Before diving into the demos though, a little background. So coming back to this idea of reciprocity, I grew up loving reading, writing books, video games, and playing music. And of course, I never wanted to focus on just one of those things. So that led to a question. How can you bring seemingly different forms, text, interactivity, animation, music, all together harmoniously in a way that privileges story and not gameplay? Because of course I love reading and I'm a sucker for story. It's a question that sent me on a years-long quest and culminated on this idea of digital books, not for young children, but for young adults and up. A Modern Ghost you can find for free on AltSalt in the iOS and Android app stores, which shows an early attempt at this space. I have developed those ideas quite a bit since 2017, and I'll briefly show some of those from my Instagram account. So check out this craziness. You see what's happening there? We're scrubbing through an interactive book. I bet you've seen people do that with a movie. You're probably doing it with an ebook, a regular ebook, but I'll bet you've never seen anyone do that. And so what I want to draw your attention to right now is that using very simple touch interactions and animation, the very different kinds of experiences that you can create as a result. We were just looking at the digital book. Now we're looking at more of like an animated art piece. This is more of like a digital graphic novel. And here you'll even see that we have animated video in the background being synced with text, right? So you can be creating a digital book and fly an animated film into the middle of that book. And I just think that this offers so many kinds of opportunities in terms of what digital books can be. And I think that gives you a pretty good idea of how I'm thinking about new media literature. So with all that in mind then, bringing this back to Carrier Pigeon. So Carrier Pigeon is an absolutely beautiful, large format print magazine of illustrated fiction and fine art that's been in publication for about 10 years. each issue itself is a work of art. And I was talking with Russ, the editor-in-chief, a few years ago, and we were thinking, okay, how can you bring this magazine into the digital world? And for that, I'd love to now invite Warren Lair to the stage to show off an excerpt of this magazine we're working on. Warren Lair is a writer and designer known as a pioneer in the fields of visual literature and design authorship. He is a 2020 New York Fine Arts, New York State Council on the Arts Fellow in Digital Electronic Arts. In 2019, he became a Ladislav Sutner Lifetime Achievement Laureate. He was honored by the Center for the Book Arts in 2016. He's won the Brendan Gill Prize, the IPPY Outstanding Book of the Year Award, and grants and fellowships from the National Endowment for the Arts and the Ford and Rockefeller Foundations. His work is in the collections of the MoMA, LA County Art Museum, and the Brooklyn Museum, among others. He is a professor at SUNY Purchase and a founding faculty member of the Design as Author MFA program at SVA. I'm so excited to be collaborating with Warren on this magazine and to share the piece that he wrote and designed and I implemented, called Riveted in the Word. And with that, I'll let Warren have the floor.
Thank you, Artemio. Good to be here. When the Carrier Pigeon folks asked me to be part of their first digital issue, they introduced me to Artemio, and I decided to work with a short story that I wrote called Riveted in the Word, about a woman, a historian, person of letters, who has a pretty severe stroke. And in this story, she's describing her experience regaining language. And I storyboarded it to live in this digital space, and worked with Artemio, who helped in this very wonderful collaboration to program it expertly. And we're going to look at a short excerpt that comes in about 2/3 of the way into the story, when our protagonist is describing being in rehab, and really at this point not being able to speak after months of exercising her muscles. She could lip words, but couldn't utter them, even after several years. She never gave up. Always riveted in the world, in the word, there's our title. Inside, screaming, really describing this frustration with having full consciousness and memories and thoughts, but not being able to communicate. And then one day, a word came out of her mouth, chocolate. And down below that white band, her husband is seeing that and hearing that she said chocolate. I'm nodding frantically, moving eyebrow up, down, bed shaking, so excited. Chocolate. I say it again. The most beautiful sound. Simon, her husband, goes downstairs to the rehab place and gets a box of chocolates. And they're beside themselves, give and take in marriage, love each other like one, don't know how many years, then a millimeter blood clot, a millisecond, and kaplunk. I forever take and take. And there's a moment there of the bifurcation of the left and right hemispheres of the brain, give and take again, her and her husband, two patients, we helping each other. And then this goes back into a text modality. And one of the things Artemio and I worked on was sort of splitting the difference between periods where the reader is reading a text at their own pace, and then opening up the text into a kind of more experiential kind of realm. Artemio, you want to talk about that at all?
Absolutely. So it can be a little hard to see, perhaps, but I'm actually swiping through the experience right now, right? So it's, again, this playing with like the animation and then with the user interactivity and really blowing up the idea of what a book can be, right? Because we're in that moment of just sort of that experiential having like the animations happen, and now we're actually driving the text, right? So it's just really playing with these different like aesthetic times, and again, just really reimagining how you can create meaning in a literary space. All right. And so with that, I think that we can wrap up on Riveted in the Word and show off a little bit more of the magazine. How's that sound, Lauren?
That sounds great. Thank you. It's been a real treat to work with you.
So I'd like to draw your attention now to a very different sort of experience that we have in this magazine as well. So this is Shit Hits the Fan, or SHTF, by Really Large Numbers, an art laboratory collaboration between Julia Oldham and Chad Stayrook. Really Large Numbers create immersive installation laboratories, which resemble science fiction experiments that imagine speculative future worlds. For Carrier Pigeon 21, they create a post-apocalyptic choice adventure. So this is much more of a straightly played choose your own adventure story, but it utilizes the same principles that were used to create the demos, as well as Riveted in the Word. And I'm so excited to be putting together this literary magazine that makes use of these very different kinds of experiences as part of a cohesive whole. The artwork is supposed to be pixelated, by the way. That's not a bug of the system. With all that in mind, though, I'm not going to show too much of this, but just to give you, this is just to give you the impression of the different kinds of experiences that are going to be a part of this magazine. And so that was a taste of the digital literature stuff I've been working on. This digital issue of Carrier Pigeon is coming this fall 2021 and will be filled with other interdisciplinary new media collaborations. So stay tuned for that. And so to sum all this up, I'd like to leave you with a tongue-in-cheek term I came up with to describe the things I'm working on. And that term is animate. Not animate, animate, which comes from, of course, the catch-all word for reciprocity, aini. And it means to infuse with this concept of reciprocity. I'm currently trying to animate more things in my life to bring things together harmoniously, and I invite you to do the same. Thank you so much for your time. You can find me on Instagram and to a lesser extent, Twitter at Artemio Sens. If there's anyone out there interested in joining AltSalt, or if there are any illustrators out there who would want to collaborate on digital books, definitely let me know. You can also find AltSalt at This Is AltSalt. And if you want to keep in touch on the digital magazine, you can sign up for my studio's newsletter at www.artmayu.com. So with that, thank you so much for your time. Have a great night. And do we have time for questions?
You have time for a question or two if there is one.
Yeah. I'm not seeing any in the chat. But yeah, so with that, thank you all so much for your time. Again, you can reach AltSalt at altsalt.com. Definitely shoot your message if you're interested in signing up or want to learn more about it, and have a great night.
Alrighty, thank you so much, Artemio, and Warren as well. Thank you so much for being with us. Very much appreciate it. All right, everybody. We're at the halfway point of our show, and it's time for everyone's favorite part is a little break with some saxophone music, and also Todd talking to you about how you can give Babycastles money. That's right. The best part of the show. Oh yeah. let's get into it. Hey, here's me. Got a nice big Todd here. So, for those of you who are just joining to the online version of WordHack, you might be like, what is a Babycastles? Here's a Babycastles. Babycastles is a DIY independent gallery and event space for the indie games and digital art community in New York. We're based in a basement on 14th Street in Manhattan, have a really vibrant community of game makers and technologists that work and put on events and exhibitions out of there. We've had to close our doors since last March because of COVID-19, but we've been doing a lot of online shows since then. So different ways you can get involved with Babycastles are by following or subscribing here on our Twitch channel. You can also check out our website, babycastles.com, get on our mailing list. But probably the best way is to become a member of Babycastles. If you go over to babycastles.com/join, you can see all sorts of ways you can help support Babycastles. Wait, oh no, that's the With Friends is how you join. My mistake. That's not the real join. This is the real join on our With Friends page. Show different ways that you can join Babycastles. Give $1 a month, $5 a month, $20 a month, $50 a month. Different ways. They can also, like, if you give $50 a month, you'll get free entry to all word hacks and everything. Lots of fun swag. These kind of memberships are really what has allowed us to keep running with our doors closed. So if the kind of programming at Babycastles is something you're interested in, becoming a member is a great way to stay involved, or you can just do a little suggested donation on the events you're specifically attending. So we also have workshops every Sunday. I believe our next one this coming Sunday is on Pico 8, making games, kind of like a beginner-oriented workshop in making games in Pico 8. We have workshops, got WordHack every month. And yeah, that is my brief saxophone-infused message on how you can support Babycastles. I am going to smoothly transition into introducing our next featured presenter, who I was just looking at my WordHack archives and saw that she was last here with us on December of 2016. Really excited to welcome back Kelli Anderson, who's a really outstanding designer and papercraft engineer, pop-up bookmaker, and has been doing some really interesting work around typography recently. Really excited to see what she has to share with us. Please give it up for Kelli Anderson, everybody. Woo! Oh, I don't have my YouTube video ready, so you're just going to have to clap until I get there. Oh my gosh, everyone, you're going to have to keep clapping. Here I go. I've got a YouTube video. Oh yeah. All right. Welcome, Kelli.
Hey, thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to awkwardly share my screen now. Uh-oh, I actually want that. Hold on one second. Uh-oh. It's not working like it did in rehearsal.
I think you can just play it, right?
I can. You're going to see my notes, but it's cool.
Oh, wait, if you hit the play button, will it work?
Well, then I won't be able to see my notes.
Oh, a challenge.
Yeah, it's okay. Normally it lets me draw a box, but like it's fine. We're all like longtime friends here.
Right.
So
I can actually move your notes off screen.
Oh, cool.
Or off stream. Wait, I'm working on it. Or maybe I can I'll put a little box on here. One second. Let's see. Okay. Yep, definitely not notes here. Nope, no notes. Just vibes.
Oh my God. Thank you for saving me. Okay, cool. All right. I'm gonna present now. So hi, I'm Kelli. I make pop-up books that have interactive demonstrations built into them that try to make the world less black box, and also give people like a different philosophical frame through which to see the world. This is the last one. It's called This Book is a Planetarium. And it reconstructs different tech gadgets and demonstrates how physics principles that enable these technologies to work. And for example, this one shows that sound is basically just wavy air and explains why megaphones work. And this one is all about how light travels across time and space to bring us the experience of stars, and why the night sky is always changing. Later this year, we hope, with Letterform Archive, we're publishing a book called Alphabet in Motion, a pop-up book for typophiles. And I'm creating all of these paper mechanical idioms that explains why type from all these different errors look how it does, which ties both into aesthetic thought and philosophy of those different times, and then also the technology by which those letters were produced. And the basic premise is that if you examine letter forms closely enough, that you can see the entire history of the world in microcosm. So it's a very humble premise for this pop-up book, ABC book. But you know, it's a philosophy of technology book. So we see people over and over again as technology changes, rethinking from the ground up. What is a letter form? Is a letter a pictogram? Is it a amulet, a portal to the spiritual realm, a printed artifact? Is a letter a set of executable gestural instructions that you can give to a computer? So as I said, it's an ABC pop-up book. So each page has a letter on it that works as a demonstration and an illustration of an essay that hopefully after reading, you can walk through the world and identify these letters and then be able to speak to like where they come from. And this is very much a work in progress. This is how I've been going about creating it. I started by researching the history of the technologies behind humans have displayed and transmitted the written word over time to try to find those interesting shifts to highlight. This is a small segment of my crazy wall. I'm a very big believer in crazy walls. Then I create these physical, tangible metaphors for those concepts by tearing paper apart and making a mess in my apartment. This is a prototype blank. Then I go back and do more research, more crazy walling, and I write an essay and I take those blanks and then I do the graphic design on top of it finally. I don't have a lot of graphic design done yet, but I'm pretty sure that since this book focuses on so much transitional technologies from like the 60s, 70s, and 80s, that we're gonna go with this like fluorescent RGB color palette like early video games, which I'm pretty excited about. So these are all the steps. I've been working on it since August of 2019, which is like basically a different time period at this point. I've done all of the paper engineering until the printer tells me that they can't make anything that I sent them, which is always possible. I've written 14 of the 18 essays, and I've done one page that's graphic designed in a way that I'm happy with. So yeah, that's where I am on this very long journey. So I'm going to be showing some rough prototypes. So I just wanted to warn people to lower their expectations. They're not going to be beautiful graphic designy things. But I do have a lot of prototypes that are pop-up mechanical things about letters, which may be the first time anyone could say that. This is my batch of them. What I'm going to do now is show you a couple of these rough prototypes, and then time willing, I'm going to read you a longer form essay so you can see how all of the pieces come together. This is the O. This one here is sort of a physical analog for that expansive feeling of moving your hand across a slider and manipulating variable type, which is a brand new technology that just got incorporated into OpenType in 2016. This is me working on the G, which features an alphabet by Wim Cruel, which I'm mispronouncing his name. I should have practiced that. But this one is all about grid systems and how we think of grids as being a restrictive force, but that oftentimes they are a jumping off point for doing wild experimentation. And that runs through Solowit's work, through Wim Carell's work, and through like a lot of computer experimentation too. This is a skeleton of a letter, which is rendered with string that pops up into a full letter, which is an X from a typeface called Mineral. And it explains how Donald Knuth and Metafont's conceptualization of what a letter is was based on a skeleton that then was surrounded by different styling. This is an isometric PQ, P from one side, Q from the other side, which is all about interpolation, which is a tool that typeface designers have used for all of time, and is now really coming into its own now that we have variable type. And these are two pairs of the letters H and the letter I. And the reader is encouraged to use this blue gel to try to convert between H and I. This is all about the typeface FE script, which was the first typeface explicitly designed to support machines. It was OCR readable, developed in the late 70s, and to thwart human beings. Before its invention, Germany had DIN, which is on the left-hand side on their license plate, which is very easy to falsify, to change one letter into another. And FE script, which means anti-falsification script, it's sort of like the type equivalent of defensive architecture. So this ugly thing that you can't, totally lacks modular parts, is what is on Germany's license plates and has actually been incorporated onto many countries' license plates now, which sucks. So I want the book to answer questions like, when I'm a person out in the world, when I see warped, distorted type, why do I immediately associate it with the 1960s psychedelic culture? And this pop-up is about that. So this is all about the aesthetics and activity of projecting 2D shapes that fall and drape and warp across 3D surfaces. It comes with a letter and it comes with this disc. The disc has two different choreographies programmed into it. So it's like a starburst in one direction and you flip it over and it's a different sequence on the other side. And it's basically so you can like recreate in your bathroom what was happening in the 60s. Conjure up like a bathroom lo-fi Joshua Light show for yourself. Or if you're on the East Coast, you can have Andy Warhol as Plastic Exploding Inevitable playing over the Velvet Underground. And what we're doing here is letting the reader also play with the basic mechanics of photo lettering, which was a technology developed in the late 50s as an alternative to metal type. And this method allowed all of this warping and experimentation that previous typesetting technologies did not. Another question, these are all questions that I like legitimately had, and I'm just like, I feel so vindicated that there are answers to. Another zeitgeist thing is like, why do all typefaces on the manuals of like 1980s VCRs and tech products look like this? And part of that answer is that they're all based on the base shape of a superellipse, which is forever associated with the mod 60s as a shape that came on very, very strong and went out of vogue equally as quickly. It came on so strong and started getting incorporated into all the design at the time because certain vision that didn't reach as humanity until after World War II. And so the superellipse in design is really a post-World War II invention. It started showing up everywhere from, TV screens to dinner plates, toys. In fact, even at like in 1961, you had these negotiations in for the Vietnam War. They couldn't agree shape of the table. So the super ellipse was seen as like a perfect compromise between a square and a circle. And so a super elliptical table was used for these negotiations. And it eventually made its way into type design of the time too. So these typefaces dip into these vestigial feelings of post-World War II peak industrial achievement that brought us the super ellipse in order to reassure us that, of course, the airlock on the spaceship is working. And in case you're frustrated with your VCR and rummaging for a technical manual, of course, user, it's you, not the VCR. So that answers that question. The pop-up for this one, this is for the letter R, is a super elliptical R that's created out of these 16 little elliptical wheels, which is one of my favorite pop-ups. And it works just like this. It's just these little tiny V-fold hooks in here whose angles change as the book is open and closed. So each one of those hooks, you glue a wheel, and you can see that it rotates 90 degrees. Okay, now, I think I have enough time. I'm going to take you through one of the full essays about modular typography. So this is like a history lesson, and I'm reading the text in my hand. So it might be a little bit drier, but hopefully it'll still be interesting. So this appears across this spread. On the left-hand side, we have the letter U, and on the right-hand side, we have the letter V. And it features all of these different typefaces. So modular typography. So this is a modular device for building letter forms. It's only 10 shapes, and it doesn't look like much, but if you remove them from the pocket, there will be a pocket on the page, and try joining them together as you would puzzle pieces, you can generate your own harmonious alphabet. From these radically simplified parts, one can generate any word, any book ever written in the Latin alphabet. So to give you a sense of what modular typography is and where it came from, wood and hot metal type printing technologies gave typesetters movable type, where each character was separated onto its own blocks so that these letters might be moved around at will and configured into any word. Modular type takes this concept one increment of granularity further and atomizes the letter form into its constituent shapes. So just as any castle from one's imagination might be built from a bin of Legos, and any of the world's skyscrapers might be built from a standard steel beam, any letter can be thought of as being constructed from a bin of parts. Modular alphabet systems take advantage of the fact that similar shapes repeat across an alphabet. For example, the semicircular bowl of a P is the same shape that forms the top of the semicircular bowl on the R. And an E is basically an L, but with 2 crossbars added, basically. So an enduring feature of typography and why it's so interesting to study from a technological perspective is that we have this ever-present tension between the human and the machine or the systemicized in it. The alphabet we have today actually consists of elements that have evolved over centuries in a piecemeal fashion, containing both the logic of the Roman capitals, like they say capitals, they literally come from a chisel on stone from the Romans. That's where all capital letters come from. Lowercase letters come from a completely different tradition, this tradition of the Carolingian minuscule handwriting. So geometric segmentation of the skeleton of letters has always been a feature of type design, but so has the organic handmade shapes of calligraphy. And it's a challenge, and different technologies do it more successfully to preserve both. So while the alphabet does indeed repeat shapes, the forms are not perfectly modular. The design of the system here, called combination shrift, forces the alphabet to be modular by emphasizing the importance of the arrangement of form over the drawing of form. It's a radical prioritization of the system over the human. And combination script can best be understood as typography run through the philosophy and ideals of the Bauhaus. An overarching tenet of which was to pare down all design to its essence, stripping away all superficial decoration to find perceptual truth, much like how scientists isolate variables from confounding constants in order to locate scientific truths. Applying a spirit of objective vigor, the Bauhaus sought to decouple design from individual subjectivity, instead submitting it to a higher order logic. Sort of a scientific and rational method of investigation brought to type design, one that was driven by an almost like mystical fascination with the unknowable mysteries of perception, which was influenced a lot by Gestalt psychology. Joseph Albers began developing this alphabet in 1923 when he first started teaching at the Bauhaus. And the artist and educator started with his students what he would gradually refine until 1931 when he was forced to flee Nazi Germany. And the exercise was intended to lead his class in the construction of modular letter forms that were defined by the logic of the tools that created them. So a ruler, a compass, and a grid, rather by the human hand. So this is a reoccurring theme that we see in Albers' work. It permeated both his teaching and his work, is the use of systems to arrange geometry very methodically, but pursuit of perceptual truths about color and form. In this final version of combination script, is constructed from only 3 basic shapes. Characters are placed in interconnected sequences in a fixed relationship of 3 to 1. Since the construction of the type is established by the constraints of the tools, it has no choice but possess this pleasing cohesive internal logic and consistent rhythm. And this is a large legacy of the Bauhaus, is this demonstration that a feature of using modular parts in these systems is to create a harmony that you don't get from less modular parts. Modular font systems have not, however, enjoyed much longevity. Most of these alphabets died out soon after they were invented, because in practical use, the conceptual benefit of being able to make an entire alphabet from less parts is more than offset by the considerable time, expense, and diligence that composing it demands. And an exception can be seen in this, this typeface called Supervelos. It was designed by Joan Trocat in 1942, right after the Spanish Civil War. And that wreaked such intense havoc that most of the metal for printing was melted down to use for armaments. And Trocat developed Supervelos, a collection of letter forms, stems, and parts from which both letters and illustrations could be made using only a small amount of metal. The components could be linked together in a lateral sequence or superimposed in layers to create exciting and unpredictable effects. Curator and professor, oops, there we go. So curator and professor Alexander Chowsky reports that shadow of the brutality of this war was so long and so pronounced in the printing industry that even today, small towns in Spain lack proper printing facilities, and many of them still use this typeface. Okay, very quickly, this is the V. This is showing a Czech modular typography system called Patrona Grotesque, which breaks down letter forms into 38 different component shapes. It's ingenious because you can generate both the Roman alphabet and Cyrillic characters from the segment shown here. These segments are called polytypes, these disjointed monolinear shapes. And basically the activity here that people are going to do is use the wheel to draw both Roman V and the Cyrillic character for V. So I just want to show this other system, this other crazy system. This is amazing. That's able to generate 3 alphabets from these 17 parts. And this is from Bombay, India, from 1940. This is a specimen from the Gujarati type foundry. So these mere 17 parts were able to make all of the letters in the Roman alphabet, Urdu, and Sanskrit alphabets. Not much is known about this, but it's really super cool. Very little is known about Patrona Grotesque, other than it was issued by the Patrona Prague type foundry, Savarna Passam, around 1931, and that it translates literally into the word cartridge, which associates the system of configurable units with machine parts, which points to an interesting dimension of modularity, in that it predates but philosophically anticipates this idea of industrialized construction. So modularity is a conceptual framework based on a single repeated module, or the basic unit, identical in each iteration, from which larger products can be assembled. With a bin of parts mentality, I'm just showing Karl Narwat's modular stuff here because it's super cool. With pieces askew on a wheel with visible I-beams, all industrialized modular construction bears the imprint of its own destruction. In this, modular pieces manifest our playful tinkering impulse to understand structure by taking it apart with our eyes, as well as our darker human preoccupation with imposing order and control over any organic system. And the spirit of industrialization aestheticized is best articulated in the philosophy of the minimalist artist, which the Jewish Museum introduced to a skeptical public with their seminal 1966 show, Primary Structures. And inside these galleries, besides people wearing cool box dresses, you'd find Dan Flavin arranging the modular pieces of fluorescent light tubes from the hardware store into various compositions. And visitors tripped over and cursed at Carl Andre's audacious lever, which consisted of a single line of 137 firewood bricks placed side by side on the floor. I'm going to skip forward just a little bit. Oh, something that someone said about this show, it was intended as an insult, was that artists could exit the room and leave the program running, essentially saying that this wasn't art. Okay, wrapping it up. So suggested in the module, in the Lego brick, in the bowl of the bee, in the plywood sheet, lay an implicit path guiding how building should proceed. Its stark limitations define a system so thoroughly that the module almost acts as a self-executing program. In and of itself, the component pieces provide an outline for a program of infinite variations, all of them contained within this first step. And the promise implicit in today's modular furniture like IKEA is that of an easy to assemble prefabrication of modular parts that's easy to use because it's of known dimensions and promises it will fit into your bedroom's corner. And this is the same thing that Patrona promised. The advantage boasted was that the exact size of each word can be established in advance to create a wide range of consistent forms, or to implement narrow or wide letters on demand without any difficulties. In this way, modularity represents both a restrictive and a freeing influence in production. It allows humans to easily envision how programs will play out, to toy with the manageable range of possibilities in their brain and with their hands. It facilitates playfulness while offloading the burden of things that humans are pleasuring. Modularity represents function that our normal human eyes can follow. So one last thing. So this is modular type, but on a Rubik's Cube. And that's something my book can't do, and I'm sad about it, but I just wanted to show it to you. Yeah, so this is what I've been doing with my life for the last 2 years. And if you have any questions, complaints, or ideas, this is my email. I'm also on social media, and you can learn more about this book at my website. So yeah.
Woo! Thank you so much. That was really amazing. Great to hear from you, Kelli. And yeah, please do let us know when there's any portions of this book available. I know I saw some messages in the chat of people wanting to know where they can follow up on it. So that's some really cool stuff, and I feel like I learned a ton in that talk, and really can't wait to get a copy of that book. Alrighty. Thank you for sticking with us, everyone. We are on to our final talk of this evening. Last but not least, I'm excited to welcome Golan Levin and Tega Brain. Golan and Tega are both outstanding digital computational artists in their own right. Golan with a lot of more visually oriented work dealing with perception. Tega with a lot of connection to the environment in her past work. But tonight they're, I think, presenting more in their capacities as very influential code educators. Golan at Carnegie Mellon and Tega at NYU, but they've both just been thinking a lot about kind of innovating on ways to teach code, especially to beginners, to new students, and in the creative disciplines outside of just like a narrow computer science degree. They have a really outstanding new book called Code as Creative Medium, which is out from MIT Press. I'm sure someone can drop a link in the chat at some point during their talk. But I think that's the occasion for their talk this evening. They've got a lot of really interesting stuff to tell you about. That's enough of me talking about them. Time to have them talk about all their interesting topics and ideas in this book. Please give it up for Golan Levin and Tega Brain.
Hey. Hello?
Hi, are we on?
You're on. You're on.
Is this thing working?
Oh, yes, beautiful. There's the two of us. Hi, everyone. Hi, friends.
Hi, everyone. I know there are friends in the chat, so really nice to see you all.
Lovely to see you all. I just organized a art and code conference a month ago with a bunch of folks, and I deliberately put Kelli Anderson last because I knew I should never follow Kelli, and now I have to follow Kelli.
I know. How can we compete with that historical work?
What's particularly interesting is in our book, we have a tiny chapter on modular alphabets as an assignment, as we'll talk about. And Kelli just put our research to shame. Really embarrassed. So, yeah. But we'll show it. Shall I share the slides, Tega?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. This is the first stop on our book tour. So let's see how it works.
Right. The first date.
That's right. I'm gonna share this, and I just want to check it out in the thing. That looks really good. I've got some subtitles on my end, but they aren't gonna show Tega's text, unfortunately. Tega, do you want to start, and I'll hop in when you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is the cover to our book that, you know, has actually been, I think, one of the longest projects that Golan and I have both worked on. We had a very casual chat, you know, over a scone or a bad cookie at I.O. Was it 2013, Golan? I think
yeah.
It was 2013. And we were chatting about how semester was about to start and we weren't prepared and what were we going to do. We had to both teach creative coding, and we started talking about like what assignments we were going to assign our students. And in that discussion, we started talking about this classic creative coding prompt that maybe many of you have been assigned, which is to make a unconventional visualization of the passage of time. So to make an unconventional clock. And in that conversation, we realized that, you know, there wasn't really a book out there that documented these classic assignments that, you know, I had been given from my teacher in Australia when I was studying this stuff. And Golan, you were given it at MIT many, many years ago.
John Maeda.
Not so many years ago, just a few years ago. And we really realized that there was this canon of like assignment prompts and projects in the media arts that weren't really written down anywhere.
That's right. So this was how our book was born. And I should maybe just kind of introduce and say that our book is a collection of assignments for the media arts, as Tega suggested. And it is really a book for educators. And in thinking about how we should create a book that's for our community and also compiles and collects, as we'll see, assignments from our community, we were thinking about what is sort of distinctive about teaching media arts or teaching computer programming more specifically to artists, designers, and other creative people. And this set of 3 bullets kind of kept ringing in my mind from a presentation that Leah Beakley gave at Carnegie Mellon a number of years ago, where she pointed out that artists, designers, and other creative people tend to learn in very different ways than people who primarily identify, in STEM fields. And she said, that artists and designers and creative people learn by making concrete things rather than by somehow absorbing abstract principles, that they work in ways that are improvisational rather than in planned ways. And they like to be able to sort of change the problem underfoot if things need to be pursued in a different direction, or if they discover a happy accident. And that often they prefer to make things that are expressive rather than utilitarian, and that these 3 things taken together form a sort of set of shearing forces that make learning programming and other kinds of engineering techniques difficult for creative people. And so we wanted to take these into account when thinking about creating a book of assignments that would allow artists, designers, and other creative people who are learning to code ways that they could have sort of motivated approaches to learning, places where they had a kind of a point of purchase and a kind of investment, and would allow them to learn programming using their inclinations and approaches. So, Tega,
yeah, and I think it's also that there are many different ways to learn to code, right? And that it's not that the computer science and the sort of the utilitarian engineering sort of mode is definitely not the only way. And how do we sort of articulate that and speak to all the work that's been happening in this field and in the arts in this area for many decades now. So this next question, why make a book for teachers? And this was a question that actually our publisher threw at us, which was a little unexpected for me. Which was, why would we make a book for teachers? There aren't that many teachers out there. There's many more students. Let's make a book for students. And we actually pushed back, and this was also partly because we were really inspired by a text, Draw It With Your Eyes Closed, The Art of the Assignment. And I don't know if any of you have come across that book. If you haven't, I really recommend it. And it was this compendium of like people's really personal accounts of brilliant art assignments they'd be given in art schools. And it's just such a rich archive of practices that have been happening in art education for a long time now. And so I think, Golan, you and I were really talking about that book a lot, and about like we need sort of a similar text to document assignments and work in the media arts. And
go ahead, sorry.
Sorry, you go.
No, I was going to sort of introduce the next sort of set of problems, which was that, Tega and I were both familiar with assignments like the clock. That would be sort of classic assignments that you would give to students, but the quality of these assignments was sort of folkloric in the way that they were sort of passed around, but not written anywhere in any kind of formalized way. We all knew about them. We all used them. All of our peers used them. And, as we looked into other books of assignments in other fields, and there's a few, but this is a great one, for example, called Taking a Line for a Walk, Assignments in Design Education. The authors point out that, great works of art and design, make it into museums. They're written about critically in journals and books, but that the assignments are often lost, that these are these words that come out of the professor's mouth in the classroom and get sort of discarded. And they write, the layer of language that runs alongside this process of education is often neglected. Words fly out of a teacher's or a student's mouth and quickly disappear into thin air. Instructions and specifications, corrections and questions fuse with practical work, and assignments, if written down at all, are rarely considered something worth saving. And so this is half of the problem. In our field, right, often assignments are sort of saved. They exist in places like openprocessing.org or in people's, online courseware in WordPress blogs that they create for a given semester. And yet, the internet being the fragile thing that it is, these things break. You know, Java no longer works in the browser, or Flash no longer works in the browser, or my online courseware, my WordPress got hacked, and suddenly that whole course is taken offline. And as we set about the project of sort of collecting and compiling literally hundreds of assignments from the media arts community. I had a student who scraped open processing. We extracted all the classrooms from there and collected more than 800 assignments that, you know, professors all over the world had given. We started to categorize them, tabulate them, group them in various ways, trying to find out what were the commonalities, what was the sort of the core sort of kernel that was sort of then distributed all over the world, but sort of had this, what was the essence of the assignment. But as we collected them, we also discovered that many places where we hoped to find them had disappeared. You know, links to courseware at UCLA or NYU or Carnegie Mellon had gone down. And we knew that part of what we had to do here was a preservation effort, as much as it was a kind of a distillation effort.
And I mean, I think the other reason of like why I make a book for teachers is, you know, that so many of us teach, even if we're not doing that as our full-time endeavor, that, you know, teaching is a sort of practice that a lot of us are engaged in, and particularly a lot of us who are artists. So yeah, you know, obviously we've made this book as something that has sort of distilled a lot of work from a community, and we specifically made it in mind for, you know, that person who maybe they've just recently graduated from an MFA program. You know, maybe NYU called them 3 days ago and said, your creative coding course starts in tomorrow. Well, do you want this gig? You know, and what do they do? Like, how do they figure this out? And so we really tried to specifically think about what would be useful for that kind of person.
In that sense, the book that we're going to show you excerpts in just a moment, but the book represents kind of both a kind of a distillation from the community, in the sense that we sort of harvested and collected and compiled and extracted assignments from all over the world and from all of our friends and from many of our peers, but also kind of a gift back to the community, in the sense that it is this, in this distillation process, we sort of offer it to the new educator, as Tega points out, who has just graduated from their master's program and now suddenly has to teach for the first time and is scrambling to whip together a curriculum in media arts. One of the, I think, challenges that's, I think, unique to teaching programming in the arts is that we actually care a lot about what's being said and not just how it's being said. It's what distinguishes teaching computer programming, you know, in our field, in the arts, from just what happens in computer science, which has sort of had the monopoly on teaching programming for 50 years, right? Suddenly now computer programming is something that exists not just within the discipline of computer science as the study of algorithms, but actually in all the other fields, activism and poetry, you know, art, design, architecture. And each of these creative practices is developing their own sorts of idioms. And we wanted to produce a book that would allow us to consider what's worth teaching and why, that was not just about code. One aspect of this, for example, that I think is important in the book is that although the book is entitled Code as Creative Medium, there's actually no code in the book. We have an online repository at GitHub, which presents sample code in, you know, several different languages, JavaScript, Java, Python, and so on. But we didn't want to commit computer code to print and to paper and to kill trees, to commit to, you know, this month's flavor of JavaScript when these languages are so quickly obsolescing. I have so many books that 5 years later are literally just, you know, kindling because they're obsolete. Do you want to say something about this slide, Tega?
Yeah, I think just to add to that, I think it was also a response to, you know, in the creative coding community, obviously with the work of like the Processing Foundation and so forth, there's been so much awesome work on like how to teach this stuff and how to program if you're not coming out of a CS or engineering background. And we really felt that, yeah, I think it's very worthwhile thinking about the why, you know, why do we make the stuff we make? How do you teach students curiosity and inquiry and criticality. How do you sort of teach technology as this like discursive thing? And so, yeah, I mean, I think the way that we sort of approached this was in this sort of format of assignments, and in each assignment, as you'll see in a second, we gathered works from our community that sort of were excellent aspirational examples of the various topics that we look at.
Tega, I have this idea, which is maybe I should go right to the document camera and just give a really quick overview tour of what the book looks like so people can see it with their eyes. And Todd, maybe you wouldn't mind expanding my image if you can.
Oh, sure.
I'm going to switch over to my document camera and unshare my screen, I guess, maybe. Should I unshare the screen, Todd, or not?
Yeah, unshare the screen, I think.
Very good. Okay, no problem. So, hey, folks. So here's our book, Code as Creative Medium. And so a few things, just to kind of give a quick overview of the structure of the book before we show some of its details. The book consists of a series of 23 sort of large, what we call assignments that are sort of open-ended assignments that, like, for example, like the clock, each is presented with a brief that describes a kind of overall problem, like design a visual clock that displays a novel representation of time. Many people who work in academia have to answer these sorts of questions about what are the learning objectives. This is sort of what you owe your boss because they want to know how this is relevant to students. These are variations that you can use as an educator to sort of tune the assignment for your specific students. And it's important to say that this assignment is something that can be used both by really introductory students and also really advanced students. And then each assignment is attended by a kind of a little essay, a short essay explaining how it can be made meaningful and sort of some points of entry into it. Then we illustrate it with examples of works in media art that kind of show different approaches to that idea or assignment. And these represent both sort of well-known media artworks and also sometimes artworks by students or others that are lesser known, but represent sort of good solutions to an assignment rather than good artworks necessarily, different approaches. So just to show, for example, we have apropos of Kelli, one of our 23 assignments is modular alphabet, where you have to design a typeface using graphical primitives so that all the letters of the alphabet are structured by the same software parameters and graphic logic. And some of the examples we give are like the well-known Pi alphabet by Peter Cho, where each letter is made up of 2 arc shapes or 2 Pac-Man shapes here. And some of the same examples, actually, Kelli, are right in there too. Another example of these sorts of, well, we can talk about the detailed exercises, but we'll show some of the sort of this overall structure. In addition to the large 23 assignments, which are open-ended and sort of for any level of student, there's also a set of about 208 small exercises that we'll talk about. And these are something that have something closer to correct answers. They're designed to address a specific technical topic, like randomness or designing a curve, or certain in this case, yeah, or a butt or a parabola. They're both different kinds of curves, and so these are in different categories like image or geometry or shapes and things like this. We then have a series of interviews that are with a bunch of great people. We'll talk about them in a minute. And these are on topics like teaching programming to artists and designers, or teaching classes where some students are really new and some students are really experienced, or how do you encourage criticality, or what do you do on your first day? And then we have a section, as we'll see, about the sort of provenance of these things. Where did they come from? Where we go into the history of these assignments. And that's about it. So why don't we just hop out of this? Well, I'll share my screen again. We can take a detailed look at a couple things. Let's see, where did it go? Was it here? Yeah. Okay.
Beautiful. So yeah, we thought we'd just do a quick overview of a couple of the assignments. So collective memory. Collective memory is an assignment about participatory practices. I think, Golan, you always described it as the cairn, which is, you know, those little piles of rocks you see on hikes or bushwalks that are sort of collaboratively produced by many, many people who are passing by. And so this assignment really explores like what it means often to work in an online context and invite the crowd into the creative process. So you can see there's a work by Carl McDonald there on the spread we shared. I think I put a few more examples on the next slide.
Yeah, actually, that's right. So on the upper left, there's a cairn, as Tega pointed out. And so these are
cairn with my American R.
so there's some examples of these sort of collective memory systems. Some of them are media artworks that are well known and have been around for decades. A cairn is obviously not a new media work, but represents this notion of a kind of collective activity. And then this one here, for example, is a rather little known project from about 20 years ago by Kevon Davis called The Smaller Picture, in which he had, it was an early crowdsourcing project in which people could flip a single pixel to change whether a grid of pixels represented a certain letter. And that's the only thing they could do, is just change a single pixel. And at the end of which there would be a collaboratively defined alphabet created by 10 or 15,000 people. Shall we?
Yes, let's move on.
Okay. Go for it.
And so just, one more example. I love this one, the personal prosthetic. So, you know, we do stray from just sort of purely screen-based or code-based works. And so this is an example of an assignment you might give in a physical computing class, where you're asking students to actually make a prosthetic for the body, right? So what would a verb for the body be? What would you enhance the body to do if you could? And there again are some more examples on the next page. That's a Lygia Clark work we just saw, which I guess is an analog response to the assignment, sort of an augmented vision project. And you can see some works here by Chris Wobkin, Sarah Hendren.
I actually would mention this project here just because it was created by a sophomore in the Carnegie Mellon School of Art, Stephen Montanar. And I mean, Stephen is unknown relatively, right? He's just a sophomore, but he has created a prosthetic that was incredibly interesting response to this kind of assignment. In this case, he has made an Arduino controlled suit, if you will, that has little vibration motors in various positions of the body. And these represent the locations where various people were killed by police through bullets. And so he relives moment by moment in a performance, he wearing this kind of device, the experience of feeling where someone was shot when they were killed by police officers. A really moving project, not a well-known media artwork necessarily, but one that represents a student solution to this problem of creating a prosthetic for the body that allows them to feel or express something different. So then should we move on to the? Yeah. So here are some of those small exercises, and I think it's important to say that, you know, we present different ways of approaching code, and oftentimes, especially early in a semester course, it's great to give students assignments that both connect to the early conceptual roots of computer art and also show programming without a computer, to kind of both demystify and maybe show that the procedural thinking is not unique to computer programming. And so here are some kinds of classic sorts of analog assignments, or exercises rather, that we can give people.
We also, I think on the next slide, we have generously folks who may be very familiar to the WordHack community, such as Alison Parrish, contributed sets of exercises for us, you know, in areas of their expertise. So obviously Alison is, you know, an expert sort of computational writer. And so, yeah, she contributed this collection of text and language exercises that she gives her own students in her computational writing classes.
That's right. And I just wanted to point out that we have in our online GitHub repository at github.com/code-as-creative-medium, we have solutions, example solutions for these exercises in Java, JavaScript, and Python. just to show how these can be approached in different ways. We don't present solutions for the big assignments because there's no one right way to do a clock, but there might be a right way to do a string search. And so we show some potential solutions. Even when students respond to exercises like this with different technical approaches, it still becomes a great opportunity for discussion to compare how one student solved a problem versus another, and talk about the sort of the technical opportunities that arise from one of these, or aesthetic opportunities as well. There's some stuff over here on the left.
Obligatory machine learning slide.
Yeah, so we were trying to be timely, and you know, this is I think one of the things obviously the last few years has really brought is the rise of machine learning in the arts, and so we have some sort of introductory exercises that would use something like Google's Teachable Machine or ML5JS to you know, to teach introductory computer machine learning. You want to say anything further about that? No.
Let's go. Next slide.
An interesting feature of the book is that the book itself is computationally designed, and this was a first for MIT Press. And one of the more interesting challenges we had working with an academic publisher, we felt it was very important rhetorically that the book itself sort of be created through a process of computational design. The cover is a computational design. We had hoped to have it be something where it was each cover was unique, didn't work out, but the book itself is computationally designed because the contents of our book, the exercises, the assignments, even the interviews is so modular. It really lent to a process where we could write our stuff in a Google Doc, have that export to a JSON, have the using Bazel.js, which is a processing-like library for scripting InDesign, it would fetch that JSON file and then automatically lay out the book. It meant that if we could make a change to our writing, and the book would just kind of redesign itself on the whole. And we whipped up a pretty rough version of this. This is some of our code from 2015, and then handed it off to an excellent computational book designer, Q Hashim, who worked with Min-Sun Eo to do the actual final design. One of the things that came back to us from our early reviewers was that we needed to think more about where it wasn't enough just to say that there was a folkloric quality, but to kind of actually dig into this and say, like, well, what was the history of these actual assignments? So we have a provenance section towards the back where we sort of dig in. Our iterative pattern assignment, we were able to find computer art classrooms that gave this as early as 1976, I believe. The clock we found by John Maida in 1999. So we would go back into the history to the greatest extent that we could, but you know, many of these websites were lost. Yeah.
I mean, also, I think, you know, syllabi are more available than they were in sort of the early days of computing, as they would all have been on paper. So yeah, I think, you know, there's definitely a PhD there if anyone's interested in tracking some of this stuff.
I mentioned that the book is sort of from the community back to the community. Tega, do you want to talk about the interviews?
Yeah, so the final section the third, I guess, major section in the book is interviews, as Golan's mentioned. And so we were really lucky to interview all these folks that you see on the screen here. So really like amazing artists and educators, and yeah, super grateful to all of them for contributing. You'll see a few familiar faces there from WordHack: Alison Parrish, Lauren McCarthy. Todd can point out all the other speakers, I'm not sure, but yeah. So they all, I mean, the interviews are so lovely. They all give really, really candid advice about how they run their classrooms, and, you know, what happens on a good day and what happens on a terrible day where you come home and, you know, everything broke and nothing works. So
I think it was your idea, Tega, to have the interviews. I don't remember where the concept came from, but I do know that we've gotten a lot of really positive feedback from people who've read the book, sort of feeling the kind of commiserative quality of these things, sort of saying like even really sort of well-known educators in the field, like some of these folks, sort of have lots of problems educating. Yeah. It's a struggle for everyone to kind of bridge the poetic and the technical to deal with students who learn a different way, to deal with students who have wide ranges of skill, to deal with the critical aspects of code.
And deal with like constantly changing technical tools where you have to feel like you have to learn a whole new environment every 2 years, right? Like,
yeah.
Should we have been painters? Maybe.
Yeah. I think that's about it. We just have your last quote that you liked here. I'm sure you should.
Yeah, and I think in doing this project, and particularly like as you mentioned in the provenance section, Golan, where it does demonstrate that, you know, programming and computation has been taught and developed through the arts, you know, since its very inception. That, you know, I think there's a lot of work to be done in sort of elevating and shining a light on the work of artists and designers in these fields and using these tools in these environments. So this was a quote that sort of really stood out to us. I think it was a tweet actually from the end of last year after our draft was like, well, off to the printers. And the quote is, our understanding of what computational work looks like has become limited because the history of computing has been dominated by figures in STEM fields. But other figures and stories belong in this history too. And so I think, you know, the book is also about insisting on the value of arts literacies in engineering spaces and across the board, not just, you know, code literacies, which have long been sort of deemed as essential for those of us in arts and humanities to learn. So yeah, we really are trying to emphasize the value of the perspective that the arts brings to these technologies.
Check my checklist and we hit all the points that I wanted to hit. So I think we're good.
That's it.
If there are questions, I'd be happy to take them. If Todd, if you think there's time.
Oh, I see Todd in the chat said Tayun and Zach have talked here too. So yes, many friends included.
Yeah, we have time for a question or two if you want to take one, but I don't know if we have any in the chat.
Thanks.
Thanks, Todd. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, we are available on Twitter. I'm at Golan, and Tega, you're at Tega Brain.
Yep, that's it. All one word.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much for having us.
Let's give it up for Tega and Golan. All right. Thank you so much, Tega and Golan. Really appreciate it. Really looking forward to getting my hands on this book. Yeah.
We'll send you a copy, Todd.
Oh gosh, I would love one. It's a really can't describe enough how, yeah, this is just such valuable information, putting together assignments for a syllabus. It definitely has this folkloric quality, and having been someone who has been in that 1 week to put together a syllabus position, really glad that something like that is out there. Really appreciate that. Thank you so much, Tega and Golan, and to all of our featured presenters. Let's give it up one more time for all of our featured presenters. That was, again, Artemio Morales, Kelli Anderson, and then Golan Levin and Tega Brain. Let's give it up for all our presenters in chat. Woo! Oh, claps. Oh, the claps. Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. So that has been our show. WordHack is the third Thursday of every month. So we will be back next time on, let me look it up real quick. Oh yeah, that's going to be March 18th. So we'll be back on March 18th with Nick Montfort, Alan Sondheim, and Angie Waller. It's going to be a really great show. So come through again. If you would like, I'm just going to hop over here. Oh, if you would like to, oh no, I realized I have a broken link to my mailing list for WordHack. I was going to share the link to the WordHack mailing list. Oh, I'm just going to vamp here while I make sure I look up the link. WordHack mailing list. I'm just vamping here. Just opening up the email list. Maybe someone can get there first and post it in chat. I see Babycastles is posting that we have a workshop in Pico 8 at Babycastles. on February 28th. That's a great thing to go for. Oh, and I found the WordHack email list sign up. If you want to make sure that you catch future WordHacks, I send an email out the week of WordHack every month. I don't send emails out other times, so no spam there. So if you wanna get in there for future WordHacks, please do, and then you can also just follow this channel or become a Babycastles member. Lots of great ways to support WordHack and support Babycastles. That's about it for me. And you know that gentle entrance of saxophone music means our time together has come to a close for this evening. But this isn't the last time we'll be chilling together. We'll be back again next month and a bunch of other months too. Yeah, it's been really good seeing all of you, and thanks for spending some time with me and with our featured presenters and with all of our presenters on the Open Projector. And I'm Todd Anderson. I'll see you next time.